So here we're going to be continuing from where we left off, looking at what happens after anxiety has already been activated in the body and how thoughts then interact with that experience. Once anxiety is present physically, the mind usually steps in very quickly, not to create the anxiety, but to make sense of it. Thoughts arrive to explain what the body is doing. Those explanations can either calm the system or intensify it. This is an important distinction. Anxiety often begins in a body, but it is sustained, shaped, and sometimes amplified by thought. You might recognize this pattern. A physical sensation appears, tightness, restlessness, a sense of unease. Almost immediately, the mind starts asking questions. What's wrong? Why do I feel like this? What does this mean? Those questions are natural. The mind is trying to regain orientation. The problem is that once anxiety is present, the mind tends to search for certainty in a state where certainty isn't easily available. This is where thoughts can become repetitive. Instead of resolving the situation, they circle it, replaying scenarios, imagining outcomes, testing explanations. The thinking feels urgent because the body is already activated. At this point, thoughts don't feel like optional mental activity, they feel necessary. It can seem as though thinking is the only way to settle what's happening. In reality, the thinking is responding to the anxiety rather than solving it. One everyday example is social anxiety. You notice your body tense before or after an interaction. The mind then starts reviewing what was said, how it sounded, how it might have been received. Each thought adds detail, but rarely adds resolution. Another example is health-related anxiety. A physical sensation appears. The mind begins scanning for explanations. Is this normal? Have I felt like this before? Should I be concerned? The body stays activated while the mind searches. What matters here is not whether the thoughts are accurate, it's how they interact with the activated nervous system. The anxious body gives thoughts more emotional weight. Neutral possibilities feel more threatening. Uncertainty feels harder to tolerate. Early in the series, we talked about internal pressure and emotional confidence. When emotional confidence is lower, thoughts are more likely to escalate anxiety. When confidence is higher, thoughts still arise, but they carry less urgency. You might notice this difference on calmer days. A sensation appears, but the thought that follows is something like, that's uncomfortable, rather than, this is a problem. The sensation still exists, but it doesn't spiral. This shows that thoughts don't have fixed power. Their impact depends on the state of the system they're interacting with. Another important place is speed. Thoughts arrive very quickly after bodily activation, often so quickly that people assume the thought caused the feeling. In reality, the order is reversed. Understanding the sequence can be relieving. It shifts the focus from controlling thoughts to understanding their context. Thoughts aren't the enemy, they're responders. When people try to stop anxious thoughts directly, they often become more noticeable. Attention increases, monitoring increases, the system stays alert. This can make anxiety feel more persistent. What tends to help instead is changing how thoughts are related to, recognizing that anxious thoughts are part of the body's response rather than accurate predictions, allowing them to exist without needing to resolve them immediately. This doesn't mean ignoring thoughts or dismissing them, it means noticing their tone. Anxious thoughts usually speak in urgency. They demand answers now. They frame uncertainty as risk. Over time, people often learn to recognize that tone. When they hear it, they understand the body is activated. That recognition alone can reduce escalation. Another shift is allowing thoughts to pass without engaging fully. Thoughts lose intensity when they're not treated as instructions. The body settles first, the mind follows later. As this understanding develops, people often report that anxiety still shows up, but it doesn't hijack attention in the same way. Thoughts become background noise rather than the main focus. This doesn't require forcing positive thinking or replacing thoughts. It comes from understanding sequence and interaction. Body first, thoughts second, meaning last. When that sequence is clear, anxiety becomes less confusing. People stop arguing with their minds and start responding to their experience more holistically. In the next episode, we'll build on this by looking at why reassurance seeking often increases once anxious thinking takes over and how that pattern develops without people realizing it.